What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Samson, and in today's video going to be a little bit of a how-to tutorial. Now, a lot of you that watch my channel more than likely are already car enthusiasts, bike enthusiasts. You guys know how to work on cars, but there are a lot of people out there that unfortunately don't know how to do small things like changing oil. And in today's video, it is time to change the oil on my 4.1 liter stroker Nissan Maxima. Now, in the comments, there were a few people that actually commented on this car. They said, bro has a Corvette and he's modding a Maxima. Guys, this particular car right here is my dad's car. Now, as you guys can see, he does leave it out. GM's clear coat is not the best. So here in North Carolina, when the sun is beaming down, it does just hit on this paint. He doesn't drive it too often. As you guys can see, it is a manual. Need to clean up the inside, but this is not my car. This is my dad's car. The Camaro is my car. Now, one reason why the Camaro hasn't been modded is because, for one, the engine is blowing on it right now. It's going to take a little bit of time to get the funds to not only get a new engine to build, but also modifications for the Camaro are quite expensive, quite a bit more expensive than the modifications for this car right here behind me. Even just looking at a cold air intake or an exhaust system for the Camaro, you're talking about a few grand for something good like Cook's or American Racing. So I do plan on doing some things to the Camaro. I also have a manual transmission. It is a V8. It is the SS model, as you guys can see. But today's video is all about this car. Hopefully you guys stayed around until we got to this point, because we are going to go ahead and start the oil change. So a few things that you're going to need. You're going to need either a little bucket or some type of device to catch the oil. We used to use a little pan that was about this shallow. I did go ahead and invest in getting me one of these bigger containers for being able to hold the oil. So you're going to need something to hold the oil that you're draining out. You're going to, of course, need some oil. For my car, it comes running 5W30 from the factory. I did just rebuild the motor. I do want to have a little bit of a higher oil pressure. So what I decided to do was run some 5W40. That way, whenever the oil warms up, it still has a little bit more viscosity to it, which is going to add just a little bit more resistance and therefore help increase that oil pressure. And as you guys can see, I did go with Valvoline. I used to use Pennzoil a lot. I've been seeing a lot more people use Valvoline, and I gotta say, as far as an oil goes, I have enjoyed it. You're going to need, of course, your oil. You're going to need an oil filter. For mine, I decided to go with this Fram Ultra Synthetic. You'll be just fine with any type of filter, whether you get a Fram Tough Guard, whether you get a Extra Guard, whether you get something like Mobil 1 AC Delco. All of them are going to be about the same as far as filtration goes. Can't really go wrong. K&N is another brand. You can't really go wrong with the filter. You're going to need a wrench to break loose your oil drain plug. Generally speaking, most oil drain plugs are right around 14 millimeters. I know that the oil drain plug for this car, and I believe the Corvette, is also 14 millimeters. So most of them are going to be 14 millimeters. You can use a socket or a ratcheting wrench like I'm using. And then the last thing is a little bit of a special tool in a sense, is you're going to need something to crack loose your oil filter. Generally speaking, the oil filter should just be on the car hand tight. However, over time, with different heat cycles and everything, it can get a little bit tightened on the actual oil filter housing. And so you're going to need something to break that loose if you can't do it by hand. They do make some oil filters that have a little bolt on the end that allows you to be able to actually hook onto it and break it with a regular socket. And then you have this one, which basically goes around the filter and it tightens up as you twist it. Then last but not least, you're going to need a jack. Now, generally speaking, most people like to run their car a little bit in order to let the oil warm up. That way that it runs out a little bit more smoothly, a little bit more quickly, instead of being just thick and congealed. And so I did already run my car. It is warm. And so I don't want the oil to be hot though, because then you can burn yourself. And so we are going to go ahead, jack the car up, and get you guys going on how to do an oil change on your car and save you a few bucks in the process. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is pop the hood. So go ahead and locate that hood release up under your driver's side footwell. Find the hood latch, should be in front of the hood somewhere. Pull that, revealing the engine bay. Now, as far as the jacking situation goes, a lot of people are gonna tell you to use jack stands. Since I'm not putting a whole lot of different lateral forces or anything on the car, I'm just going to use the jack. However, I do recommend jack stands for the ultimate level of safety. And just finding the jacking point under the car, you should be able to find a frame rail or something like that that should be perfectly fine to jack the car up from. Now, as far as actually getting your catching container ready, if you have a pan, you should be fine to just go ahead and slide it under the car. If you have a device like this, remove that cap. Go ahead and slide it up under the car. Since the oiling system is pressurized, I do like removing the oil cap just to go ahead and release whatever pressure may be in there, but I do put it back on to make sure no contaminants get in the system. Go ahead and locate that oil drain plug. It should be up under the car, under your oil pan. You should be able to find it fairly easily. All right, guys, now that we've located our oil drain plug, let's go ahead and put that 14mm ratchet up there. Now, most oil drain plugs are going to be just like a regular bolt, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. If you're trying too hard to get it off, you may be turning in the wrong direction. Now that we've broken that bolt loose with the ratchet, let's go ahead and unscrew it the rest of the way by hand, making as little mess as possible. Nice. So we didn't get a whole lot on our hand, didn't make a big mess. Let's go ahead and sit this oil drain plug to the side, and let's watch it drain the rest of the way. All right, real quick, guys. I know I'm going to get some flack for this. A lot of people are going to tell you to change this crush washer on your oil drain plug. Me personally, I never changed mine. I never have. And in the almost 10 to 12 years that I have been changing my own oil, I have never had a incident of an oil leak because of using the same thrust washer. Never had an incident of an oil leak at this oil drain plug, period. Personally, it's up to you. If you want to change your crush washer, you can. If you don't, it's up to your discretion whether you want to leave it on or not. Me personally, I leave mine on, but that is just me. Now, whenever you get to where your oil is just dripping, like how this is, you're going to want to go ahead, take your oil drain plug. Remind you, I do have a magnetic one to try to get all that stuff that the oil filter is not able to get, all those little pieces of metal. You're going to want to go ahead and put your oil drain plug in. It's a little difficult because, like I said, it is magnetic, and tighten it up. Most oil pan housings are going to be righty-tighty. I haven't seen one that's lefty-loosey. However, I'm not saying that you won't run across one. With the plug snugged up by hand, I'm going to go ahead, put my wrench up here and tighten it. Now, you don't necessarily need a wrench that's this long. And if you do have one this long, you don't want to grab it at the end because you'll end up putting too much leverage on this bolt and you might end up stripping the threads. So what I like to do is tighten it and get it just to where I can barely move the wrench, putting all my weight into it, and then tighten it just a little bit more, and that should be good to go. When it comes to your oil filter housing, it's going to be a little bit more of a messy job. Generally speaking, manufacturers don't actually make it easy to get the oil from the oil filter to get into the pan without running on some type of frame rail or line in the process. Now, first and foremost, before you use this little tool, you can actually try to twist it off by hand. As you can see, I can't twist mine off by hand. So we're going to go ahead and go to the tool. What you can do is, and this will be a little bit difficult to do with one hand, but I'm going to try to do it for you guys. What you can do is get the tool on the end of the housing right here where you have the most grip, and I like to twist mine back. That way I can get the most leverage out of this thing right here, this little lever. and then you can go ahead and pull. As you pull, it'll tighten. And as you guys can see, the oil filter is slowly starting to turn off. Now, it can be a little bit of a challenge, especially when you're doing it with one hand like I'm doing it. But after you get it loose, you should be able to just wind this back and keep twisting it. Wind it back, keep twisting it. It's probably loose enough to get by hand now, so I'm going to take this off. Now, you're going to get a little messy doing this. Don't be scared of a little oil. And as you guys can see, the oil is running on the frame and then into the pan. Now, you could probably negate this by using some type of deflector. Me personally, I just always clean afterwards just to make sure I don't have a whole bunch of oil shooting all over the place. But nevertheless, that is how you remove your oil filter housing. Now, one quick note, and I'm sure a lot of oil is going to spill out of here, so I'm going to try to make sure that I tilt this upward when I take it out. But as you guys can see, still got a little bit. One quick note on these oil filters. What you want to do is make sure that your gasket is still on the filter. A lot of people change their oil. They don't realize that the gasket has come off of the filter. There's a little rubber O-ring gasket that's on this filter. They don't realize that it's come off and it's still on the housing, and they end up putting a new filter on, doubling up the gasket, and ended up with a leak. You don't want it to be you, so make sure that your gasket is still on the filter whenever you take it off. And let's go ahead and let's get the new filter back on, get everything cleaned up. All right, guys, now we are going to go ahead and try to get on this new oil filter. As you guys can see, we do have our new gasket, and I do normally try to get them with this little textured grip on the end, just so it's a little bit easier to grab it when you need to. What some people do, they go ahead and actually put a little bit of oil on the filter housing where the gasket is. What I try to do is that same thing, just to sort of lubricate the surface, help them both sort of get a better seal. That way it doesn't go on dry and accidentally twist off or anything like that. Some people pour oil into the filter so that it doesn't start dry. It's a little hard to do that with a side mounted filter. Now, I can show you guys how to do it. What you're gonna wanna do is, with that same oil you used, go ahead and pour some up here, but don't pour too much in there, just enough to sort of stir it around and get the inside of it nice and lubricated. Now, it still is not, of course, completely saturated with oil. Nevertheless, that should be a little bit better than your standard not having anything in there for these side mounted filters. Like I mentioned, guys, it is just a little bit harder to do. When it comes down to it, we can go ahead and get back in here and put our filter on. You're just going to put the filter on and then twist it the opposite way that you used to get it off. And like I mentioned, guys, these are generally meant to just be twisted on by hand. I usually try to twist it on as tight as I can by hand. Alrighty. And there we have it. Now, all you would do, check one more time. You know that you just twisted that on all the way with it snug. You know that you put your drain plug back in and tighten it down. Now you should be good to go ahead and fill up the top with oil. All right, guys, as you can see, it is a little bit later in the day, almost nighttime. I do have my flashlight out. Go ahead and remove that oil cap. Go ahead and start pouring your first quart of oil. My vehicle takes 5.5 quarts, so that's how much we're going to put in there. If you do end up needing a funnel, don't be ashamed. As you can see, I haven't used one, and as you can see again right here in a second, I don't spill it. I'm able to get it right in the hole. I've been doing this for a long time, so don't worry about spilling it if you do. Just use a funnel, guys. Don't be ashamed. Let's go ahead and finish wrapping up that 5.5 quarts, put the cap back on, and we should be good to go. All right, guys, and as you can see, we are finished with the oil change. Now, it's a little bit dark. It's actually not that late out here. It's just extremely cloudy. And so we're getting a lot of that darkness, but hopefully it doesn't rain on me. But we are finished with the oil change. We have everything buttoned up. Of course, we did change the filter, tighten it down, along with tightening down the oil drain plug, and then fill it up with oil. I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up, but that is a general tutorial on how to change your oil in any car, make, model. Doesn't matter. It's all going to be about the same. If you guys like this how-to video and you guys would like other how-to videos, how to change O2 sensors, spark plugs, valve cover gaskets, manifold gaskets, whatever the case is, make sure that you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for joining. Catch you in the next one. Bye.